So today in this video, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 farm animals that you can raise on your farm, even if you don't have that much space. I'm going to break this down into two different categories though, so we can talk about animals that are fairly easy to keep, and then ones that are a little bit more intermediate. These ones you probably won't get until after you've had the first 5 for a while, and you familiarize yourself with your farm and your property and what you're able to do personally for you. And then we'll move on to the next 5, which is a little more difficult to raise. Hi everybody. Hi MP. Hi Violet. Hey BP.
Bucky, what's up? What's up, Bucky?
Hey. Hi, I know. How are you guys?
Hey MP, yeah, BP.
Oh, BP, not MP. Hi BP. I don't have anything really. I know. Look at you. Look at you. You're one healthy looking boy, aren't you?
I know. You're my favorite because we had you since you were a baby. I know, little guy. He's so cute.
Lately, we've been putting them into the goat barn there. We're officially winterized now. The snow is staying on the ground. It's not going to melt probably for another while. It's cold. All right, guys, so let's get started with chickens. Of course, chickens is gonna be one of the first things you're gonna get for your homestead because, of course, chickens are fairly easy to keep. Now, I'll say this once, but it's probably true for all of the animals and for homesteading in general, that homesteading basically can be as complex or as simple as you make it. You can go all out and, you know, buy like 100 acres and barns and get tons of animals and goats and sheep and cow and all that stuff. Or you can just start off simply like I did when I first got chickens like 10 years ago with just like 15 hens, 1 rooster. And from there you can build your flock. So when you first start, I always advise people to just get like 6 hens when you first start. And then trust me, that flock will grow because you'll end up loving your chickens. You'll end up loving your chickens so much that you definitely will want more chickens sooner rather than later. Chickens is just one of those things, it's super addicting. Like you get into it and then before you know it, you've got like 60 birds, all these different breeds. And because they're so easy to keep, you can really get carried away with the amount of chickens you get. So just start small and you can always get more birds, or you can always add a rooster to your flock and then your eggs will get fertilized and then you can either incubate and hatch them, or you can maybe have a broody hen if one of them goes broody. Fairly simple. When you first get your chickens, you're gonna have either babies. Now you can have day-olds that you can order from a hatchery, or you can just get chickens from a friend or a neighbor, or on, you know, some classifieds you can go and find chickens rather cheaply. And then it's up to you how much you want to invest in them. But the main thing you want to do, I say this all the time and I really want to stress this, is that you have to have a secure chicken coop. You can't just get birds and then put them in a very flimsy chicken coop and expect them to be safe. Before you know it, predators are going to get in there and they're going to attack your birds. So before any of that happens, just make sure your chicken coop is nice and secure. You have locks and bolts that like even a raccoon's fingers won't be able to open. And when you do build your chicken run, you want to dig your fencing down into the ground a couple of feet if you can, because predators will dig to get to your birds as well. There's also probably predators that are going to come from above. Hawks and things like that will also want to eat your chickens. Make sure when you do get your chickens, you're going to, you know, put them somewhere secure, and that you're going to try and limit the predator load as much as possible. Now, moving on from chickens is something that's very related to chickens, and they're quite similar. I have them here and I absolutely love having this on my homestead. I could never see myself with a flock of chickens and not include a few of my ducks. Ducks are so awesome. About 10 or 11 years ago, I tried one of the ducks we raised as meat. We did a beautiful roast duck, and guys, I'm telling you, the meat was so good. It's one of the most underappreciated meats I think I know of because it's so delicious. The fat the duck meat has is really, really good, and it keeps that meat so tender. Might I say it was more tender than like eating a chicken, and I was shocked at how delicious duck meat is. And even if you don't want to raise the ducks for meat, you can raise them for their eggs. They lay a beautifully large, like extra large egg when it comes to sizes. They're probably an extra large if you're comparing them to a chicken egg, because they're a little bit bigger, and their yolk and the whites is a little thicker. But I use my duck eggs in place of chicken eggs all the time, and it's absolutely no problem. Just know that you're getting more with the duck egg, so you're probably gonna have to, you know, adjust. But the eggs are delicious, the meat is delicious, and you can keep them practically in the same way that you would your chickens. The only thing you have to watch for is that when you first get your ducks, you do have to give them a feed that's a little bit different than the chicken feed, because if you give them chicken feed right away, they might end up getting something called angel wing, where one wing sticks out. So you do want to make sure when they're very young, you want to give them that duck feed so that they develop properly. But once they're done in that developmental stage and they're adult ducks, you don't have to feed them any special feed. Just throw them in with your chickens. They're hardy. My Muscovy ducks are hardy to the winter. They don't get any illnesses or diseases, and I find they're a lot more chill and docile compared to my chickens, who can be obviously sometimes a little jumpy. But these ducks are so cool, and for me, because I only keep one type of chicken, which is my barred rocks, I love having my Muscovy ducks because they just add a little bit of beautification to my flock. You know, it's not just the black and white chickens. Their feathers are also really beautiful, and I just love my Muscovy ducks. Now, you can have two white Muscovies and they'll end up having a black duck, but I love them. I love all the different colors they come in, and I just couldn't see my flock without them. So that is the second animal that you can keep on your homestead rather easily and cheaply. Let's move on to number 3. Now, moving on from number 3, I'm just gonna piggyback off of the chickens and the ducks, and that is quails. I've never raised quails, but I'm getting some quail eggs by the end of this week. It is Tuesday today, and by Friday I'm gonna get my first dozen quail eggs, and I'm so excited because it's the first time I'll be raising quails. The only thing you have to remember is that quails are a game bird, so they're not gonna eat the same feed as your chickens. And the second thing you want to remember is when you get quails is that quails have a tendency to be very jumpy, and when they jump, they can hit their heads. So you want your quail coop to be rather short so that they don't have enough room to jump and bump their heads. Either you keep it nice and short or you go about 6 feet, because anything in between that is going to cause them to either hit their heads and snap their necks, or they'll get badly injured from hitting their heads. So if you go over 6 feet, they won't even hit anything and they'll just land back on the ground, or very short and they won't have enough room to actually jump to injure themselves. So whenever you do get your quails, make sure you keep that into consideration. Quail eggs are obviously going to be a lot smaller than chicken eggs, but they are really beautiful. They've got like a nice speckled color and they're just so cute. Quails are also delicious as meat. They taste pretty much just like a chicken. I know another thing on my list that also tastes like chicken that isn't chicken, but the quails are also great as meat birds because they mature rather quickly and their meat is really tasty and really tender, as well as you get these tiny little eggs, so you can keep them for eggs or you can use them for meat. I'm going to have my Caternix quails. I'm going to get the eggs delivered rather soon, so I'll be making some more quail content as well. So when it comes to birds, I would say chickens, ducks, and quails are fairly easy to keep and they make a great addition to your homestead. Now, moving on from the birds, we're going to talk about something that I said tastes like chicken, and that is rabbits. Meat rabbits are absolutely delicious. They taste just like chicken from what I've heard, because I've actually never had a meat rabbit. My husband just isn't into raising rabbits. One of our really good friends, the man we purchased the quarter cow leg from, he raises rabbits and he says they taste just like chickens, and he loves getting the fur off the rabbits to make mittens and hats and things like that. So the fur is really, really good. The meat is excellent and tastes delicious. Not to mention, rabbits also make a great pet. So if you just want something that, you know, your kids and your family can enjoy, the rabbits are a wonderful addition to the homestead. Let's move on to ruminant animals, stage 2, which is a little bit more intermediate. All right, I'm gonna start off with sheep. Now, a lot of people may be surprised that I'm gonna say sheep before goats, but that's because sheep are a lot easier to keep than goats. Goats are absolute escape artists, and if you don't keep a good eye and have really, really good fencing, they will escape on you. And the worst thing is to have an escaped goat run into your vegetable garden. When it comes to goats, they will find everything and eat it. And they're so good at escaping that I think sheep is probably one of the easier ones when it comes to ruminant animals that you can keep. Sheep are so docile, you guys. We keep 2 to 4 sheep here, usually once a year. Sometimes we'll keep them longer, but we usually raise them for meat. And they're so easy to keep. The goats and them, they get along. As long as the sheep has enough room to run around so they can get away from the goat for a little while, then they actually get along really, really well. I don't ever have any issues raising my sheep and my goats together. And if I do, I'll just separate them. And usually it's the buck and he'll just get put into his separate pen. But the sheep in general are just a really docile animal. They're super, super calm, and they don't try to escape your fencing, which is a huge plus for homesteaders. Us goat keepers know that if we don't have fencing that is really strong and very secure, the goats will escape. So if you can go the route of keeping sheep at first and then moving on to goats, I think you would benefit from that greatly, because the sheep are just not going to try and test the fencing. They're a lot more calm. And I find that especially if you get a hair sheep and not a wool sheep, there's 2 different kinds. So wool sheep are going to need to be sheared at least once a year in the spring, and that's going to help them stay a lot more hardy, and it's going to keep them disease and pest free, because if you keep that old wool on there, it's just going to invite diseases. Starting with a hair sheep is probably the best way to go, and that's what I'm going to look for my next 2 sheep that I'm going to get here. It's going to be hair sheep, because we did have the wool ones, and those were they just required a lot more time with the shearing and everything. So if you do keep the sheep and you want the wool, then you can also get wool from it, but we usually just keep them for meat and you know, as a companion animal to our goats and things like that. So we really like having the sheep, and our number one reason is because they just don't tempt the fencing and they're so easy to raise. They do require a little bit of like minerals and, you know, some supplements and things like that. Maybe you have to deworm them once a year or whatnot, but it's the same that you would have to do with goats, but they're just a lot more docile, and I find they're a lot easier to raise. All right, now moving into the next animal, we're gonna talk about pigs. Pigs is something I've never grown because we just don't eat pigs, but pigs are delicious. If you eat pigs and you eat bacon and things like that. What you do need to know is that pigs root, which means they dig. So make sure when you do get your pigs that you have a nice secure fence, because remember, pigs are very strong, heavy animals once they're full grown. They may look cute and tiny at first, but they put on weight rather quickly and they grow pretty fast, and they're heavy animals. But you can find a really nice docile breed, and then you can have meat for your family for a long time. So raising a couple of pigs every year is going to be something that you will really enjoy on your homestead. Keep in mind that pigs aren't the cleanest animals. Of course, they are pigs. They like to get dirty. They like to be messy. But the great thing about pigs is that they'll eat practically anything. So if you have expired milk, fruit, food, anything like that, you throw it in there and the pigs will be more than happy to clean it up for you. So pigs, again, is another thing that you can keep on your homestead rather simply. You do have to provide them a small area so they can get out of the rain and the snow. So make sure you have, you know, a little barn or a little 3-sided hutch for them, securely fence them around, and then make sure you have the right grain or feed for them that you're going to need. And then once you have your stuff all set up, you raise your pigs and then you take them to the butcher when it's time, and you've got amazing farm raised pigs. So let's move on to goats. Goats they can be little buggers. They will test you, they will test your patience, and they will especially test your fencing. Now, goat fencing is probably the most important thing you will think about. It's probably the thing that you're going to spend the most time on because raising goats is they're just not always content with sitting around. They're just not like that. They're very curious. They have a lot of personality. They want to walk around, they want to move, and so they will test your fencing. Best thing to do when you have goats is to get an electric fence. Right now it's not even hooked up because we're working on the gate here. We're building a new gate, because of course goats are always testing everything. So we have it all set up here, and my number one advice is to just get the electric fence. It may be, you know, a steep cost at first, but if you're going to keep goats, I'm telling you, you're going to need it. Unless you're going to build like a really stable wooden fence, the electric fence is absolutely perfect. I really like the electric fence also because I can move this whenever I'm doing rotational grazing with my goats and my sheep. I can basically undo all of these, take out the T-posts, and I can put it, you know, somewhere else on my property, like over there or back there in the woods, or up the hill up here, or on this side of the hill. So there is a lot of room that I can move the goats, but I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have the electric fence. Now, some goats are hardier than others, so when you go to purchase your goats, make sure you look into it and you try to get a hardy breed, a breed that's going to be good in your climate. We get really cold here. We're in Ontario, Canada. It does get cold. Today is pretty cold, and my goats are doing fine out in the snow because this isn't their first year being in the snow. They're very acclimated to it and they know what to expect. But they're also, you know, boars and pygmies, which are breeds that I know to be hardy enough to withstand my Canadian temperatures. So just do a little research, find out the type of goats you want. Now, I do recommend, if you're only getting your first goats, that you go with a miniature breed. A miniature breed is basically a breed of goat that was bred to maintain its small stature, so it won't get past a certain size. The ones I have here is a pygmy, and that is perfect for a small homestead because not only will they need less space and less grazing area, but also they're a lot easier for you to handle. You don't want to have an animal that's gonna, you know, push you around and headbutt you and intimidate you. You want goats that are going to be easy to handle and good around your kids. So when you first start, I really think you should get a miniature breed like a pygmy or a Nigerian dwarf or something that's just a smaller breed, so that it's easier for you to handle when you need to move them, or if you need to get them out of somebody's yard that they escaped from, you'll actually be able to do that without them overpowering you. Goats also make excellent pets because they have so much personality and they're so fun. They literally are some of the best pets you can ever have. They just have a lot of personality, they're really curious, and they're just so cute. They're also excellent for meat. I don't know why people think goat meat isn't something that is a thing, but goat meat is delicious, okay? Have you ever tried a good goat curry? It is great. So don't think that you should only keep your goats for milk. You can definitely eat your goats as well. You know, make sure they're not your pets because then you'll, you know, start getting feelings and then you won't want to butcher them for meat. So make sure you keep that very distinct line between what is a pet for you and what is meat for you. And that comes with everything, even the chickens and the sheep and all of that. And when I move on to the rest of them, it also counts for them too. So make a very distinct line between what is your pet and what is going to be your meat, and that comes for everything on the homestead. Make that distinction and keep it very clear. So when it comes to raising goats, you're definitely going to have to deworm them, you know, once a year or so, depending on how healthy the goat is and depending on if they get illnesses or not. So make sure when you purchase your goat that you're able to find some paperwork, or at least you know, from the original owners, get some clarification on the goat's health and if they've been bred or if they've kidded before and how old they are, and check their teeth and look at their skin and look at their eyes and just check the goat to see if it's overall in good health. You don't want to purchase a sick goat or a goat that has worms because that's just going to add more work for you. If you're planning on breeding them, make sure you have everything you need for breeding. And the goats, just like the sheep, they're going to need a little stall somewhere where they can go in and get away from the elements. Goats hate water, so whenever it rains, they're going to want to get out of the rain, so make sure you have a place for them to get in. And if you have a buck that is a little too aggressive, you can try the flipping technique, which is something we learned a few years ago. So you basically take the goat and you flip him over on his back and hold him there until he calms down, and basically you're asserting your dominance over that buck. And people swear by it. We had to do that to Bucky when we first got him, and he's never tried anything or never headbutts or anything, so it works. We're gonna move on to the last two animals that I think you should keep on your homestead, but these I would consider more intermediate animals, something a little more advanced from your chickens and your ducks. Well, alpacas. I don't have alpacas, but people keep alpacas because they're great for two things. Number one, I didn't know this, but their wool or their hair is very, very soft. Some say it's even softer than silk. And people pay top dollar for this hair because they make scarves and mittens and things like that out of it. So a lot of people will shear the alpacas and sell that for money because it's a great way to make money off of the animal. And then a second reason why people would keep alpaca is to protect the other animals on the farm. Alpacas hate predators, and so if you have raccoons or foxes or anything like that trying to come and get your chickens or trying to attack your baby kids, the goats, then maybe an alpaca would be something you would think about if you have the space, because again, they're kind of like a cow or a goat. They need that area to graze, and they need a little space to get into to get out of the elements, but they will graze on grass and hay and things like that as well. So if you have a huge predator load and you want to keep them at bay and you have the space, think about getting an alpaca, because they will keep most of the predators away from your property, which is an excellent reason to keep an animal. Perfect for a small farm, because one of the main things that happens on small farms is predators get into the coop or they get near the kids, baby goats, and then disaster. So alpacas are great for that. Now we're at the very last animal, and I'm pretty sure you know what it is, but it's a cow, guys. What would a complete homestead be without a cow? Now, if you're going to have a cow on your farm, make sure you do your research and do your due diligence. And I'll say that for all of these animals, just do some research, watch some videos, join some groups, ask questions, purchase a book, call up a vet if you have them in your area, ask other homesteading friends, and ask other people in the area who are also keeping cows or whatever animal it is you're planning on keeping. Just ask them and they will be more than happy to share their knowledge with you. So when it comes to raising cows, it's probably one of the more advanced stages of homesteading, I would say, because a cow is a pretty big animal. It's 2, 3, 4 times the size of a sheep or a goat compared to, I guess, the breed you're getting, but they're large animals. With a cow, if they're not or halter trained, then you're gonna have a hard time like moving them, because sometimes they're just like, I'm not moving and you need them to go somewhere, they just won't go. So make sure you research the breed of cow that you want, and why are you getting a cow? Are you getting one because you want milk? Are you getting one because you want meat? Are you getting one because you want both? Or are you getting them to breed? What are your reasons? And when you find out why you're getting your cow, then you can deduct the type of cow, like the breed and the size and everything else. For a small homestead, you're probably going to look at a miniature breed. Miniature breeds are great for homesteads because they're just not full size, and handling a full size animal can be pretty intimidating, really. A cow is a big creature. So if you're able to get a miniature cow, a Dexter is a great cow to start with because they're a small cow. They're one of the smallest cow breeds in the world, well, in North America anyway, and they just require a lot less. So for example, a Holstein, which is a full-size cow, would need like 1 or 2 acres, whereas a Dexter, which is a small miniature cow breed, only requires 1/3 of that grazing space. So not only will you save money on food, and especially in the winter when there's no more grazing space, but it's also a lot less intimidating and just a lot easier for you to handle. So I think starting off with a miniature cow, and then once you get your hands around what raising a cow is like, what milking a cow is like, what having, maybe if the cow is going to be bred and you're going to have babies, what that is going to be like, so that you get that hands-on knowledge before you start investing in a larger breed animal. But yet they still put on a lot of weight so that you can still harvest them for a pretty good amount of meat. And you can also keep them to milk. So with a cow, for feed, you're just gonna need either pasture, which is just grass, or because it's probably going to be winter where you are and you won't have grass available, so you're going to have to buy some hay for them. Some people also feed them grain, so you can do a combination of hay, grain, and pasture. So that's basically all you would need for the feed. You're obviously going to need to have a vet on call, the housing, and the medicine for anything illnesses that may arise. I would recommend getting a Dexter because the Dexters are a lot less intimidating, a lot easier to handle, and they're a smaller breed, but they're still able to provide the milk and the meat that you would need from a cow. So a Dexter is a perfect animal for a small homestead. So guys, I hope you learned something today and that you were able to take away some information about the easiest animals you can start with on your homestead and animals that you probably should just at least think about getting to improve your homestead's productivity. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Stay peaceful. Bye.